Elementary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I can't see back there. There's only one. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item number 2, announcement of October 2019 School Attendance Award. Mr. Finn.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. For this month, we saw a really tight race for the attendance, the coveted attendance banner in our district. In third place, coming in number 3, was McMahon at 95.3%, which is absolutely amazing. So with McMahon at 95.3, Farwell came in at second place at 95.6. And for the second straight month, Geiger comes in at 95.9. Before we clap for Geiger, just keep in mind that you're separated by about 2 students from being first and third. So whatever you're doing at Geiger, let's keep doing it. We're going to go ahead and give you the banner, so come on up. So there's your October on there as well.
Well done, Geiger. Agenda item number 3, to receive a presentation by LRTC students on robotics.
One of our students is missing, so they're in a little bit of a panic. She's the one who does the best job speaking. So I'm Kathy County, and I'm a social studies teacher at Lewiston High School. I'm here to start our students off with their presentation. First Robotics is the FIRST stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. She's here. It is an international organization. It was started in 1987 by Dean Kamen. If you're not familiar with the name, Dean Kamen invented the Segway scooter and many, many other very creative things. He is all about setting the stage for future engineers and introducing STEM to everybody in the whole wide world. And so this is right from the first page. I won't read it to you. But I will tell you that the second paragraph, the strict rules, limited time and resources, teams of students are challenged to raise funds, design a team brand, hone teamwork skills, and build program industrial-sized robots to play a difficult field game against like-minded competitors. It's as close to real-world engineering as a student can get. And so our students are going to continue with this presentation. These are the mentors on the team. We have 7, including a volunteer from Bates College, and we're very eager to assist them and get them going. the students that are here today are, oh, I'm sorry, LRTC 8023, the Northern Forge is the name of our team. Did I write? Yeah, I did right there. We just named the team, so it's not right in the forefront of my brain yet. But Team 8023 is a number that we've been assigned by FIRST. We are called the Northern Forge. And we are supported by CS for LPS, Lewiston High School, LRTC, Bates College. And the students who are presenting today are Sage Tuttle, Garrison Fellows, Connor LaRiviere, Nemo Ali. And first up is Sage. This goes forward. And then this you can use to do the laser.
Thank you. I'm going to be talking about the mission of FIRST Robotics. The mission of FIRST is to inspire young people to to be involved in the STEM field. A lot of us, it's providing a creative and safe environment to experiment as well as means to use STEM in a competition format. FIRST strives to create leaders and business people in the world of technology and mathematics. Gracious professionalism is something that we are expected to do. It is adding and taking from the world of ideas without repercussions. It is thinking of a sort of family between everybody in the competition. The first competition almost is not a competition. A lot of people think, yeah, you wanna get to the next round. You wanna continue on, but a lot of us, if you don't succeed, you're happy for the teams that do. And the atmosphere of these competitions is unlike any sport or team game. It's just a sort of buzzing happiness that everybody enjoys. Next up is Garrison Fellows.
So we are Team 8023. We were founded by two mentors, Kathy County and Mark Richards, who isn't here today, and two students, Kyle Ogden and myself, Garrison Fellows. And we founded Team 8023 not just for the fact that we wanted to build robots, but because it's supposed to teach leadership, teamwork, networking, public speaking, self-confidence, and time management in students through everything they have to do with interacting with sponsors and other teams and working on the robot.
And as well as promoting these within the students of LRTC and the people on the team, it also, it's important for students to be exposed to this type of engineering like FIRST, because seeing kids like us and students in their position succeed in something as simple as building a robot to compete in games will inspire them and make them think that they can do things like this. And with that, programs like FIRST and kind of how it inspires other people and will bring the benefits to engineering to not only the community around Lewiston, but as a part of LRTC, the community from all 6 of the sending schools that participate in LRTC and all of the students involved in those.
For fundraising, we have raised, well, Miss County has applied for some grants that we received from FIRST. So we received $6,000 from LRTC sponsorships and FIRST Equity and SS grants. So for the basic, like for this year, we have the money for this year, and we're working on raising more money for years to come. We have applied for funding from Robotics Institute from Maine, and we have also applied for another one for the new team growth grant, and we hope to get some. So for this year we have all the money, but we we hope to increase the amount of money we have through fundraising and collecting bottles on Clink, and get to our goal if we get to Worlds. Again, we're not like we don't want like any money. We just like want support and to be like cheered on.
Good evening. On behalf of Mr. Callahan and Mr. Richards, the LRTC would like to thank the board for having us be able to present to you what's going on in one of our programs here tonight. Mr. Richards had a family engagement he couldn't get out of, but just a quick history on him. He came to LRTC. He started his students with VEX robotics kits, and he's progressed up to the Skills USA, where he has had several first place medals in the state and actually won a gold medal in the nation. He was a national champion one year. He's worked with the Lewiston Police Department, on working on a search and rescue robot, which is under construction right now, which we've partnered with many of our programs, from the welding shop to manufacturing to the IT shop for writing code. It's just been a great experience for folks. And the First Robotics, it used to be called US First back in the day. First Robotics is the next progression in this step to bring the coding, diverse students into this and to learn not just how to build a robot, but those soft skills that employers keep telling us that they want to see. So we think it's a good culmination of problem solving, developing the student as an individual, and providing them maybe having be some fun in the process. So thank you folks for having us here tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming up and presenting that. Any comments from board members? Questions? Ms. Parks? I don't know if it's helpful at all, but I know a lot of the booster teams have accounts set up with the local redemption centers and stuff for donating. Do you guys have one of those set up that people could donate to? Ms. Whitlow?
So I know I've mentioned this before. The Lewiston Rec Department has kind of a fresh, newer program there for Lego robotics, and I think it's a fantastic program. I know they're always looking for coaches and volunteers to help guide those younger children. I don't know if it's an opportunity for you all to volunteer and mentor children. That could be an option too. So.
So I want to say Mr. Richards is an amazing educator. I concur. My son went through the engineering program. I got to see that cool robot that they're making. And those skills competitions are intense and they're really fun. If you ever get a chance to go, usually they're in Bangor, the states, right? Yep. Yeah, it's an amazing thing, and students are doing so many different. There's so many different kinds of competitions, but Lewiston is always well represented. So thank you very much. Can you say that in the just so community members can hear what you had to say?
So we register for two district competitions. One is in Massachusetts, but our second one is right here at the Colisee. I think it's the first week in April. There's an annual competition that goes on there. It's called Pine Tree. I don't know if you've ever been part of that or gone to it or not, but it's open to the public and it's for free. But we'll be competing on our home field for the first time, and we invite everybody out there to come and watch us, because by then we hope to be pretty polished and win maybe a couple of awards. And these guys are very eager, and they said it well with I know it's all about teammanship, but they know too that winning is really kind of a cool thing to do, and we get a banner if we did, so we can show that off. So
I want to thank you for this presentation tonight. It's important that we put spotlights on some folks that maybe sometimes we weren't going to read about in the paper, but this is a big deal. I'd like to know if you would come show us what you build towards the end of the winter into the spring. We'd be really curious. That'd be fantastic. So we're going to invite you back at that point in time, but thank you so much for coming out tonight. We appreciate you.
Okay, on to the consent agenda. Are there any committee members that would like to have anything removed? All right, the consent agenda has been adopted. Agenda number 5, public input. I will read this just as a reminder. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personal matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Are there any community members that would like to speak on non-agenda items? All right, seeing none. Moving on to agenda item number 6, report from student representatives.
Awesome. All right, good evening, everyone. So I'd like to start out by saying this past weekend, the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council hosted an event called Trunk or Treat, and through this, we gave out candy, almost like a trick-or-treat style, but while also highlighting aspects of Lewiston that people can engage in, such as the rec department or our various school systems. Also this past weekend, the annual LRTC Extra Life 24-hour gaming challenge was hosted. Together, we raised over $2,300 for the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital. So yeah, second year, everybody loved doing it. Also, video games, computer games, LRTC. Yeah. It was great. Also, the MSSMA conference, both Gem and I got the opportunity to attend. And we engaged in 2 workshops, one being a community approach to building resilient learners. There we learned how factors like socioeconomics and both abuse can really have a factor and say within understanding a student. And the second one was balancing transparency and privacy in public schools. And that really taught me how to really know what you're going to say, especially in public places like this, and really affect the media. And lastly, I also got a chance to speak at Carrie Worker Elementary School a week and a half ago. Yeah. And I talked about the importance of diversity and understanding it and respecting it in a school system that was not really diverse, but the children were very excited to talk and ask questions.
All right, so highlighting more on sports, our boys soccer is moving to the regional finals this week, and our boys football also had a victory over EL. Then last week we had a day where kids were encouraged to wear pink in support of breast cancer awareness, and being someone from a family with a few people with breast cancer, that was really important to me. And we're also trying new opportunities, and we're making there's been there's going to be a meeting for like a club volleyball team for our school, so it's like giving kids a chance to, I don't know, be involved in new sports.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the student representatives? Okay. So I have to say that we'll report out a little bit more about the conference, but it's awesome that you guys were there. I think the keynote speaker was pretty powerful too, and it was so nice to see you there. And I have to thank Superintendent Finn for getting our student representatives there, because I don't know how else they would have done it. So thanks again. All right, agenda item number 7, to receive and discuss a report regarding LPS nursing data. Mr. Finn.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. So this evening, we've been able to make sure everyone had in their packet what we've got up here on the screen. And this is some data that was compiled by our nurses. We want to thank our nurses for always stepping up when we ask for data like this. Is Ms. Burgoyne here tonight? Yes. And so we've got Wendy here, as well as a few of our other nurses too. The school nurse is a position that's for me near and dear to my heart. It was actually my first major out of the military, was actually nursing. And I realized how difficult that was about playing college basketball, so I went to something much easier, which was education. So that being said, it's a very difficult task, coupled with the fact that you're in a school environment. My mother was a school nurse, and so I understand the job. It's a lot more than just ice packs and bumps on the head. There's a lot more that goes into it. The school committee has asked for data pertaining to visits to the nurse's office. And so we compiled some data in September. We were able to present out Connors, and then some questions came up about what about everybody else? I mean, we had some other schools in the district as well. And so we decided to collect that. And then we also wanted to compare that to data from October. So it's a little dark on the screen, but I believe you can still make out what we have up there. Otherwise, it's probably in your packet. And along with that, there are special programs that are at each of our elementary schools. And if we drop down just a little bit, we'll see our middle school and high school data for September and October. So obviously, I am not a rocket scientist. So it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out that our nurses are extremely dedicated workers, and they're working extremely hard, oftentimes without getting a lunch break in their buildings, and seeing students for more than just, again, bumps on the head. I would like to ask Wendy Burgoyne to come up and speak to the school committee a little bit about this data and help break this down for us.
Hi there. I wasn't expecting that, but that's okay. So we compiled data from the first day of school to the end of September, and then from October 1st to October 30th. So it represents what the average daily visits for each school can be. You may notice like Farwell has the smallest enrollment, but their numbers, average daily visits, have ranged between 48 and 49. They house functional life skills program. I think it's 3 classrooms, and then the RISE program, 4 classrooms, which can be very demanding. A lot of times specialized nursing care that goes along with that. So it's not a matter of just a quick visit in and a quick visit out. It's a little more timely. Same thing with McMahon. They house the behavior program, which a lot of times the visits are a little more complex because there's a little more health needs that go along with it. So along with Connors, who has the largest population, the visits can range. So they can be a quick visit to a visit that could take, 15 to 20 minutes while you still have, a pile of kids who are sitting there waiting to be seen. So it is difficult to manage it being one person in the size of schools that we have. but I'm open to any questions, specific questions you guys have about the data or more like specific stuff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, thank you, of course, for presenting and for being here, and of course, getting the data to us. So I guess what are some of the big takeaways that you have from this? Because I know that some of us have talked about adding the nursing position back at Connors, also looking more as district-wide, if there are any other additional needs. I guess as a board, what are the needs and what can we do particularly to start addressing some of them?
So we lost a nurse to retirement at the end of the last school year. So the decision, despite many meetings with the previous superintendent to fight for that position, it was felt that with the size of school that Connors was going to be, it was similar in size to other schools. In retrospect, not thinking about it then, even though we were going down our school, we weren't going down in population. In fact, I think our population continues to kind of creep up. At the start of the school year, I know the middle school was up over 800 students. So it fluctuates some, but the need is district-wide. Not only of the students that we have to see, but we have to make sure that the kids are immunized. If the kids aren't immunized, then we have to ask them to stay home or sign an exemption. So it takes time to go through all the records, make sure that they've got everything that they need. Pre-K, I know Carol can speak to this, but they have to have vision done within the first 45 days. Vision done within the first 45 days of school. That's a state standard that we have to have. When we're one person alone in the clinic, it's difficult to be able to get out to go screen those kids, especially when there's nobody covering the office. So when the kids come in, we get pulled back into our office. So the need is the need is there. The need has always been there. We just haven't always been able to show the data the way that we have been now to say the need is there for support, for us to be able to feel like we're meeting all of the needs and caring for all of the students the way that we want to and the way that we're there to do, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In these figures, for all of the schools, are visits being counted for medication dispensing?
Yes.
So that's counted as a visit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So like in my numbers, so my 708 visits or my 783 visits, in that I'm up now in terms of daily medications, but I think I'm up to 27 daily medications that I give between the start of school and the end of lunch. So 27, times 20 days of school, that's a lot of visits that add to that.
Okay. Do you have any, I'm sorry, may I continue? Thanks. Do you have any personal knowledge of the number of visits at McMahon that may be related to medication because of the behavioral unit that's there?
I don't, but I could always find that out for you.
This is all good information. Nothing bad about this. The issue is, what is it that we're trying to relieve our nurses of as a burden in their performance of their job? And I think it's important to know how many visits out of these visits are just the medication piece, how many of them are really sick visits, and how many of them are injury visits. Concussion protocols take time, and they take observation. You can't leave that student alone when they've banged their head on the swing. So I'm thinking about this in terms of what could be alleviated quickly or easily, and what it is that we truly need to do to have a first-class medical care program in our schools. and I'm interested in getting some more information about this, but I'm going to see how we move through the questioning. But specifically, I'm interested in what the DOE recommends, nurses per student, how that factors differently at middle school and high school, because our high school numbers are, only one elementary school is higher than our high school, but our high school has a lot more students in it. So as a per capita piece, it's not as high. I just think that there's lots of things that have to impact this decision. And I'll be looking forward to hearing that information. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you.
I know that the Department of Education generally will say one nurse for every 700 students, but they don't take into account health needs of the students, so there's no acuity assessed to that population. It's the assumption that all 700 are healthy, whereas when you work in a hospital, you get acuity assigned to patients. So a 1 acuity is somebody who pretty self-sufficient, maybe you have to go in and give medications, whereas a 4 acuity is more specialized care. You're spending more one-on-one time there, so less likely that you could take, you know, three patients that have 4 acuity. So they don't account for that. So it's a number, but it doesn't really account for what we have to do extra above those 700 students, if that makes sense.
So I got to ask this question, and could you be supported in other ways, like CNA, medical assistants, CNAM, the people that can pass medications, to support some of that could be alleviated quickly, or someone to wrap bandages or anything like that?
The difficulty with that is that we can't delegate specialized nursing care to those individuals. So the specialized nursing care that we need the support with isn't something that we can delegate to them to do. So it requires a nurse to be able to assist with those things that are occupying a lot of our time.
While you're processing. So I, similar to committee member Shannon, I'm wondering what of this is predictable and what isn't, in terms of daily visits that you will always have, or weekly visits that you and other nurses, not just you, will always have, versus what those emergent situations and acute needs are. And then also just Superintendent Finn, JFM, is that John F. Murphy? Yes? At Geiger? Thank you. So I again, like, I don't have children. I don't really know how these special programs would impact nurse visits. I assume they're in here for a reason. But could you maybe speak to how that influences a site?
So they would impact a visit. A lot of the students in the functional life skills, and I believe the RISE program, have a one-on-one or a behavior health person with them, or a behavior health professional. The issue becomes if there's something that's going on that they're unsure of. The student's acting different. The student is falling asleep more. The student may be more agitated. They bring them down to the nurse's office to figure out what else is going on. We sometimes tend to have a little more knowledge based on their health, based on what we're provided, so we can delve a little more into what might be going on, and then make recommendations to either to the teacher, to the classroom, to the parents as to what we think follow-up may need to be. So the students that are nonverbal, sometimes it can be a what's going on, how can we figure it out together type thing. So it's not a, hey, what's going on? They tell me, we figure out together, and then they're on their way. So they are more complex than just a...
That's helpful to understand and know which programs exist at which schools. I feel like I know in my brain, but seeing it written down is way more helpful. shoot, what was the second part? Oh, so I think if the ask is going to be either at this point in the year or at the budget point in next year, for more positions to help, it does seem that it would be helpful to know about the predictable visits and the unpredictable visits in terms of numbers, to have more data at budget time to consider. Obviously, you're still collecting that. And then it's just hard to think about how that might be equitable without adding staff at every school. And we can play a numbers game, but I don't know if that benefits us or not at this point without knowing how that could change over time as well. So great, an amazing start, and thank you for your expertise here. But I still want more somehow. Yeah, right?
Madam Chair. I thought of a couple other questions. One being, I know there's some talk about maybe having a floating nurse district-wide go around. Have any more thoughts been given to that?
Mr. Finn and I have spoken about that. As a group, we've also kind of talked about that. I've had approached in the past, looking for a float nurse that could support all of us. It goes beyond just the regular, daily things that we do. We can come to the point where, we're sick, we're out, there's nobody to cover our office. We're sitting at home knowing, well, I got this specialized nursing thing to do, and I've got that specialized nursing thing that has to be done, but there's nobody there to do it. So sometimes students are asked to stay home, unfortunately, because we don't have subs. With a float nurse, we would have the ability to say, hey, I know today you're supposed to go over to McMahon, but the nurse at the high school is out, you're really needed there. It would give the ability to be able to say, hey, I really need to get my screening done. I've got 2 days left. Today you're going to go over to, Montello, you're going to cover the clinic, or you're going to do the screenings while, the other person does the other thing. So it's a matter of support across the board. Could we all use an extra person every day? Absolutely. I think the numbers at Connors, as well as the numbers at McMahon and even Farwell, even the high school, say yes. Just because we have daily visits doesn't alleviate all the other visits we get. So to get help in any way would be a small burden off of our plate, to be able to sit there and think, well, I can be, not that I can be, but I'm sick today. I know I've got somebody there covering who's competent, who can take care of the kids, and I know that they're going to be safe. So would we all like an extra nurse? It would be wonderful. But just to be able to get some type of support, extra support, to be able to know that we all can do our jobs better than we're already doing, I think would be a great benefit to the district, to the students, to the staff. Does that answer your question?
Very much so, actually. And the other question I had is, I think sort of similar to what Miss Roy was talking about. Instead of having a nurse position, like a med tech or something else along those lines, would there be any issue with leadership? Like, who does the person report to? Because I know that kind of came up in some budget talks, either this year or the previous year.
Like a float nurse, who would they, or just, because we all answer to our building principals as our leader. Underneath the role as a school nurse coordinator, I answer to Mr. Finn. So a float nurse, I think, would, we've kind of talked about maybe not I overseeing it, but kind of creating a schedule that would work for everybody. Questions could always be brought back to myself, and then if we can't problem solve it amongst everybody, then we can always, look to Mr. Finn to, figure out which way to navigate. If that answers that question.
Yeah, that does. Also specifically, say we added a second nurse position at Connors, so they have 2 nurses. Do they both report to the principal? Is there going to be any issue over chain of command?
I wouldn't think so, Carol. Carol probably could answer that better. Probably, yeah. Yeah, we all work really well together, the 7 of us that are there now, even when we had the 8. We rely on each other for stuff that we may question, like, did I do that right? Did I assess that in the right way? So we support each other. We're all a phone call away. So, if Carol was feeling overwhelmed or the new nurse was feeling like maybe they needed extra support, we'd all be there, if that makes sense. Yeah. Or,
I can tell you that the nurse that comes on Wednesdays and works with me, we've worked enough together now so that we're meshing, and I pick up where she leaves off and she picks up where I leave off, and so there's great interaction, and what it yields is the ability to think and to not have this sense of hurry, and to just to talk about what you mentioned over here about more data about the types of calls. We're in responsive services. This is like a mini emergency room. We don't know what's coming in the door. We don't know if we're going to get called to the playground for a head injury or if the diabetic is going to go into diabetic shock. We just don't know. So we have to be prepared. So when there's this constant, steady flow of children coming, it's kind of like a dripping faucet. You know how annoying that gets after a while. Well, and you can't think anymore. You just do what that child needs and send them on their way, because everybody is saying, get the kids out of there so they can get back to class, so they can get back to learning. So that puts the nurses under pressure to move the kids along. But sometimes if you've got a diabetic kid in your office with a diabetic low, he's there for half an hour, 45 minutes, and you've got to monitor that. But you've still got traffic. You've got kids coming in for meds and other issues happening. And a couple of times I've had to just say, okay, anybody who's not bleeding or throwing up, come back in 20 minutes and close the door, just so I could have the time to think about the people that were right there and that were very important. Thank you.
that is something that we unfortunately have to do. Is if you're called on the walkie emergency in room 103 and you walk out, as you're walking out of your office, you'll get no blood, no vomit, no vomit. All of you go back to class, come back in about 30 minutes. So it's not that we're saying their needs aren't important. Right now, emergent-wise triaging it, we want to get you back to class so you can learn, realizing that we need you to come back so that we can take care of you after we've taken care of the emergency. So it is not an easy science.
Thank you. I still don't understand the whole idea that we can't have somebody passing meds, but we could talk about that another time, because we need
If it's just meds,
Yeah.
We can train somebody to do that.
It seems like that would alleviate at least some of that predictable stuff that you know about, so that you can deal more with the triage things. But again, we weren't supposed to be talking about that tonight, so we maybe could get into some solution-oriented things with different kinds of support than just another nurse. If that's not feasible in the budget, how can we help? So just maybe brainstorm or think about who could do some of those roles and what would their certifications be.
I know in the past that they've looked for like med techs for particular students. The difficulty is finding somebody who's willing to do it for the pay when they can get paid a lot more elsewhere. That tends to be one of the biggest issues. So it's not that it's taken off the table, or we don't want to leave it on the table. The difficulty is just being able to find somebody who's qualified, who's willing to do it for the pay that they're offering. And if it's just strictly for med passing, a lot of us, it's mostly lunchtime that we have the med passing. So then you have to start thinking it may only be a part-time position. And then when you look at the pay, I don't know that it would support us, absolutely. I just don't know if that's the right direction to go to give us all the support we need all the way around, if that makes sense.
So for the school committee, you know I'm a data hound, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this for you. So what I'd like to be able to do, I'll look over at you sometimes. What I'd like to be able to do is compile the data from September, October, up to November 15th. We'll meet again on the 18th. And so if I can cut it off on the 15th and work with our fantastic nurses around breaking down some of this data to what is handing out medicine, injury or sickness, other types of visits, and even the complexity of these types of visits, breaking that down to what may be predictable, sometimes what's unpredictable. I'd also like to really get into the discussion of the trauma in our schools and our students that have a high level of anxiety, and that's really across the district. I got to spend a lot of time on Friday with Carol, and yeah, we went through a box of tissues. There's just a lot. There's a lot, and I could feel that in my half hour or so, just sitting down talking to Carol face to face. So what I will do is I will assemble my team, Wendy, and we'll come up with this data and present it back out on the 15th with possibly some solutions. Mr. Chair.
So, okay, we do have a large agenda to get through, but if you want to come up, Romy.
As you know, I came to you last few months ago. I just really am begging you to give an RN, and I know, Tom, you were talking about other people. I worked with Carol for afternoon about 3 weeks ago, and I was supposed to go in to help her so she could do immunization records. Well, we didn't, poor Carol wasn't able to do it. She and I were on our feet for 4 hours doing from, you couldn't believe it, everything. But I want to point out another point about a school nurse, because I have been a school nurse out in Sabatis. And a school nurse has to assess. You need a nurse to assess what is going on. And mental health and absenteeism and skipping classes are one of the biggest reasons. Again, I'll go back to the 6th grader that I had out in Sabatis that came in at 1 o'clock every day for 3 days with a headache. Then I asked him, what class are you in? And he said, math. I said, do you like math? He says, no, I have a hard time in math. So I talked to the teacher, and we were able to settle him down and be able, I didn't see him after that. He was able to stay in math. So I want to stress the importance of assessment, mental health. These kids that come in constantly, sometimes for a Band-Aid, for a rash, lice, or whatever that we consider probably minor, a lot of is going on in the home. But Carol and I were busy 4 hours on our feet that day. She needs a nurse over the corners, and you also need a float nurse, because there's very few sub-nurses, and Wendy can testify for that. I don't even dare go in and be a sub-nurse that much anymore, because it's so complicated, and the meds are so complicated, and diabetics and all that stuff. So I just really stress we need RNs. Please.
Thank you. Mr. Shannon was first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Record keeping. Every visit has to be recorded. Every child's chart has to be updated. in the spare time between visits, right? No, but no. And you see, that's exactly when it shouldn't be happening, at home at night. I find those things which a clerk could do to be a burden that isn't necessary to put on a professional, right? If you dictate notes, anybody can put on a set of headphones and transcribe those notes into student records. I just am trying to find the things which are taking your time, which might be diverted to another source that would be less expensive than 2 positions at $200,000. All right, but if we don't know what is taking your time, okay, well, we see 68.2 students a day at McMahon, but of those 68.2 students, how much of that time is with the patient? How much of that time is record keeping? How much of that time is sweeping the floor after they're done? I want to know that, because I want to put the right person in there to help you. I don't want to put another person who's going to feel burdened by some of the tasks that are put on you now. If you understand what I'm saying, from the professional standpoint. Thank you.
So as far as record keeping, we could have any old clerk go in and audit immunizations. In terms of dictation, I'd have to look at that, but I don't think that we can dictate notes for others to transcribe. So those notes would be things that we would have to do ourselves to the Power School, because that's how we chart, is a note in Power School.
So I want to just be clear, because I don't know if this came through. So the data is helping us recognize where the problems might be, and I think by breaking the data down further, we can help craft solutions that are more appropriate, and of course with input from the school nurses, because that's a critical piece to this. I think what this part of the data has shown me, at the very least, is that, you know, if you're seeing 6 to 8 visits a day and they're 10 minutes each, that's 11 hours, and that's more time than anyone has in school. And so that part has become really evident with this data. And as Mr. Finn further refines that over time, we're going to understand what things are predictable. And so maybe staffing is informed by that if we move towards a different staffing model. But I think what Ms. Roy is getting at with her moving us along is that this is a presentation of the data, not the solutions.
I don't remember, so I apologize for not remembering. But when we went back and forth with the funding for the clinic at the high school, partially through St. Mary's and CCS, did we end up funding just the mental health piece, or do we have the physical health clinic at the high school still too through St. Mary's?
I believe that the school department is no longer funding because the funding was given back from the state. So the funding is now back to just St. Mary's or whatever money they get from the state. We do still have the 2 clinics at the middle school and the high school. Unfortunately, not everybody can take advantage of those clinics because you have to be enrolled. So I don't think it's a cost on our part anymore, but
are we able to get the data to find out if any of the students that are accounted here are also using that program, or if they're kids that could be using that program instead of this, or is there a way to find that information out?
Yeah, like how many students are enrolled in the school-based health center?
Or some of the students that are maybe frequently coming to see the school nurse could maybe be better served by that program to free up some of your time, or is there a way to feel that out? I don't know if there is or not.
There is. I can answer that only because I have it at the middle school. So when I have a student come in, if I question like an ear infection, strep throat, a question of an injury, concussion, something that they may not have been evaluated by already, I do refer them over to the school-based health center, but they have to start with the nurse before we can refer them over. A lot of times I'll say, hey, can you check to see if Todd Finn is enrolled? I really think he should be seen. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. A lot of the parents, I don't think, understand the services that are offered from the school-based health center, so they're hesitant to enroll them, thinking that it's going to take the place of their regular primary care physician. And that's not the intention of it. It is so, like, when we get somebody who we think can have a quick visit, get diagnosed, but remain in school. That's kind of the goal of the school-based health center, is to keep the kids in school rather than having to dismiss them every time that we question something and we have to call a parent. So we can definitely get, data in terms of how many kids are enrolled, how many visits that they're seeing, and get that for you.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is laborious on top of everything else, and you're here late. Thank you for both being here and advocating every single time. Your voices are being heard, and when you're here at school committee, they're not just being heard by this board, but the public, and we've heard from the public as well. So thank you. Continue to advocate. We appreciate your time. Okay, moving on to number 8 on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters in accordance with 1 MRSA 4056A. Okay, we're going into executive session. Goodbye. Oh yeah, all in favor? Thanks. I always forget that part. Okay, it's unanimous.